Hi and welcome to Street Photography with Nick Turpin. This is the second of my street photo review videos. Okay, well here we are again. This is my second time reviewing the images uploaded using the Instagram tag Street Photo Review. So thanks to everybody who submitted pictures. Okay, I've done what I normally do, which is that I whiz through really quite briskly. I mean, there's over 3,000 images to look at, so I kind of look for the ones that really stand out to me, that have something special about them that just leaps off the screen. In one way or another. So there's lots to look at here. What should we start with? There's several caught my eye. Let's start with something simple. Here's a picture by Just Golding. Now I thought this was very striking. The entire picture, like 90% of the frame, is black, solid black. And obviously this is quite a common way of working, but it's still very difficult to do very well. And obviously technically when you're out you're going to be exposing for the highlights and let all the shadows disappear into the blacks like this. I think what's nice about this is that you just have two areas, literally two areas of light, and one of them is nicely filled with this figure, a gentleman looking down at his phone, and that comes in from the bottom left hand corner. And what's nice is that the other piece of light, which is this lovely blue, is in the opposite corner, the top right hand corner. And so there's just a nice relationship there from one corner of the frame to the other. And I mean, it's not a complex picture, but probably still quite difficult to do. And I think, I just think it works really nicely. It really stood out to me. I'm gonna try and get as many done as I can today, just because it's nice to see a lot of pictures, isn't it? This is by Purse Warden. Now, what I like about this, I think what I really like about this, obviously the shape of the umbrella covering the figure is very nice. But if you look at the bottom of the umbrella down here, that line of the umbrella joins beautifully onto the wall behind, the line on the wall behind with white. And that just continuity of that line suddenly makes a connection, a relationship between the figure and the background. And it starts to make you question as a viewer, what's happening? Is there a relationship between these two things or not? I think in fact there isn't, but it just visually it gives you that pause for thought, which I really like. I like the view down the side of the street there, this little alleyway. I like the red shoes at the bottom of the screen, echoed by the two red marks on the poster above. We can just see there. That relationship with those two red things, with the other two red things, is very, very nice. I think it's just a very nice frame. It's quite monochrome in many ways. There's not many bits of colour, which makes those red elements really stand out. So I think that's really nice. The only thing that I think might make it better is if we didn't see the head of the girl carrying the umbrella, but it's a minor detail for me. I think it's a really successful frame. Let's have a look at this one here. This is by Vince Goumont. Thank you for uploading your picture, Vince. This one I quite like. I just like the lines. I like the way that Vince has framed this. This zigzag wall coming in from the left hand side. That lovely silhouette in the top against the sky, that curving plant there, makes that whole thing look like a bird. It looks like a chicken or a turkey rearing its neck, or a swan maybe. Just a lovely animal figure. It absolutely isn't an animal figure, but the way it's been photographed gives you that impression. The child walking into the middle of the frame is perfectly placed. Legs apart, which is really nice. And then to the right, the two figures. It looks like one of them is looking at the camera, which I never like, as you know, but they're nicely framed with that little arch behind them. It's just nicely constructed, it's nicely composed. Vince has stood in the right place. The light is coming from the right direction. It's just nicely put together, and I think that's something to be applauded. This picture I saw last week by Daniel Durrance. I know Daniel. He comes to Street London in August for our festival that we have. Now, when I saw this picture, I actually asked Daniel if this was the full frame, because obviously it's a square picture. But even in the square format, it's an incredibly dynamic picture. This line of figures, one of which is a policeman, ducking under this red and white stripy tape. It's just very dynamic. His hand is in the air, then the guy in the middle, his hand is higher in the air. And the shadows, if you look at the shadows on the ground from the three of them, they diminish as they go away from the camera. It's just nice. It's just a very nice moment. It's one of those things that street photography does so well, just to capture a happening. He's really caught a happening here, Daniel. And that green area on the left is very nice with the red. Really adds something. And Daniel's kept the camera largely upright, so everything's kind of nicely vertical. I just think it's just a lovely moment, and my overriding feeling is I want to know what's going on, what's happened. I'd like to know more, which also I think is a very good quality of a good street photo. Okay, here's a nice frame. This is obviously really very much about colour. What's very clever about this is the fact that the guy whose shadow you can see, whose profile you can see, his face is obscured by the lady. And I think that's a really nice little game. That's a really nice little trick. We can't completely see him as the viewer, but we get a hint of what he's like from his shadow. And I think that's a nice game that the photographer has played. Oh, I see this is by Just Goulding again. Okay, well done. Lovely hot light, beautiful colours. The framing is nice. These two red squares, the red square and red rectangle. It's divided the frame up rather nicely. It's just a very nice observation. Here's another one of these very contrasty pictures with very deep blacks. Here we have this lovely star from the sun, this lovely sort of, I don't know, radial flare, which is very nice. But we also have a sort of slightly dirty glass which allows a shadow to be cast on it. And I like the fact that the figure, whose head and shoulders we can see, is slightly dislocated from the body and the legs, the shadow of the body of the legs. That disjointedness, I think, is at the heart of the success of this picture. And then that blue sky is very nice, that rectangle, almost triangle of light, framed by black, is very nice, and it breaks all the rules looking into the sun. It's that's what those rules are there for, to be broken, and it's just a very nice image. And that is from Ilson della Strada. My goodness, I'm sure I said that wrong, but congratulations. This is like a little character study of an old lady. Now, this is by Howard Larson. Howard's been uploading a lot of nice images recently. I couldn't decide which one of his to choose. The lady bent forward, holding her shawl, leaning on her walking stick. She's a fantastic character, but Howard has set her in this extraordinary environment. It almost looks kind of artificial, like some sort of CGI environment, because it's so clean. And that orange line where it meets the beige, just passing through the rim of her hat there, is very nicely placed. And then we have these two younger women walking off away from us to the left. And there's just a nice relationship there, and also a nice difference of scale. The fact that the elderly lady is much bigger and the younger ladies are much smaller, and you can just get a hint of where those younger women might be going. There's just the hint of a street or an alleyway off to the left there, which just gives a suggestion of narrative of beyond the moment. So well done, Howard. I think it's really nice. The curving lines, absolutely gorgeous. It looks like almost like a scene from a theatre set or something, an outdoor theatre set. Okay, let's keep going. Well, here's one I liked. I mean, it's kind of a simple picture. I think street photography gets a lot of criticism from these kinds of pictures where one group of things looks like another group of things. But this is kind of a rather nice poetic example of that. This little group of school children with their red hats, echoed by the red roses behind. It's just rather quietly done. This is by Gonzula. Now, It's quite nicely framed. I would have been tempted to come around the front of the children and have the roses immediately above them and make a little bit more of that. But it's very nice to have the blue sky. The red, the green and the blue is all very nice. So it is quite nicely framed. But I would have probably come around and put the roses above that group. The light's gorgeous. It's just one of those things that makes you smile when you see it. Okay, this is by Tariel Bokuchava. I'm struggling with some of these names, aren't I? Anyway, this just made me curious. It's just a very nice moment. He's put this leaping or taking off, I don't know if it's taking off or landing or leaping or what, this peacock. I think it's a female peacock, I think I'm right in saying that. It's just placed it very nicely in that plain area of the ground. And the whole picture is quite monochrome, and the peacock just has this rather dramatic silhouette and profile against the ground and the backdrop. It just makes a very nice shape. Quite a simple picture. I'd love to know more about it. The place looks amazing, but I think it's nicely framed. It's a nice moment. Okay, here's one. Now, I did a workshop in Bilbao for Black Camera last weekend, and this gentleman, Santi, was one of the students on the workshop, and I think he's a very accomplished photographer anyway. But this was a picture which he took that weekend, which I thought was fantastic. The colours are beautiful, the light's beautiful, his framing and low angle is very dramatic. The woman is quite, engrossed and animated, which I really like. Her raised hand with the bottle held by a single thumb there, and then a cigarette between the forefingers there. There's a poise about it which I really like. And then there's a kind of continuation of her fingers with these two lines, which I think are lights in the shop or the building behind that are coming through the glass, but they go off into the top right hand corner very nicely. In the workshop I was encouraging students to try and take 4 pictures on the same day that looked like they were by the same photographer in a similar style, to take a similar approach. And this I thought was really terrific, and I thought it was the start of a really nice series, a nice way of approaching a certain subject. So yeah, well done. That's by Santi Lispada. I'm sure I'm saying these names wrong. Okay, so I'm going to whiz through because there's lots of quite nice images here that I'd just like to show you. I might not say a lot about all of them, but I just want to show you the ones that I thought were striking in one way or another. This is by Kurt Holt, and I looked at this for a long time because of the scale of this hand. This hand, this looks like we're in some sort of public transport here, in a bus or a train or a metro. And this hand is so vast compared to the woman in the background. Her hand is in the light, his hand is in the light. And so there's a really quite a nice strong relationship between the two of them. But this hand is so enormous, it just looks freakishly big, and it just makes you try to imagine the character whose hand this is. Like this vast giant sitting opposite this woman. So it just made me very inquisitive. I quite like the muted colours as well. And it just really stood out to me. Here's another one that I liked. Again, muted colours in this shot. This is by Randall Street. There's a lot of images up on the Instagram hashtag from Randall Street. Most of them are pretty strong, I think. A lot of studies of people in the, passing in the street. This one I particularly liked. I love what you can tell about somebody and their life from what they're carrying, and their nail varnish and their clothing and headband and so on. This girl's got an Adidas bag with her, I think, because there's a shoulder strap we can just about make out. Her colouring, dark clothes with the red, it's quite dramatic. She's carrying a laptop and her trainers. There's just a hint of where she's been and what her life might be like. She looks quite dour, quite sad, I think. a little bit joyless perhaps in this picture, but who knows. And then there's a quite interesting interaction with this sort of structure in the background. I'm not sure if that is for bicycle parking or something, but it almost looks like wings, which I quite liked. I thought it was a nice interaction. So you just get a sense of this person in passing, which is something which is very nice. Oh, here's another one by Howard Larson. Okay, some people uploaded a lot, so I saw a lot of their pictures. So I think I had a better chance of getting a picture in. I just like this moment. I think this woman is just checking her clothes or her bag, or if she stepped in something, and Howard has beautifully framed it in a portrait format. He's turned the camera on its side. She's beautifully lit, lovely shadow going off to the right, and I love her hand there pulling that fabric across her body. The creases are really, really nice in the fabric. It's got a slight shine, but it's the moment, isn't it? It's this moment of checking something, which it's a very subtle thing, but Howard has totally caught it, and I think I just find it very engaging. So yeah, well done. Another nice one, Howard. Now this is interesting. There's kind of crazy background here. This is by Jontu Fernandez. So this lady is, with this bright umbrella in the foreground. She's clear and contrasty. The whites of her coat are white, proper white. And then beyond her, the background almost looks artificial. I'm assuming there's some glass involved here. We might be looking into the window of an office block or something, which is reflecting the street opposite. But it's all blue, it's all monochrome, it's all quite dull, and it's also slightly out of focus. So there's a sort of softness to it, whereas this lady and her umbrella is completely sharp. And so that warmth of the umbrella with that coolness of the blue background is just a very nice contrast. I don't know if there's a little bit of lighting involved here. This could be slightly flash lit, but that doesn't bother me too much in this frame. It's just a very nice contrast, and the background is just fascinating. It almost feels like it's underwater or something, and I like that not knowing. Okay, let's move down here. This is extremely nice. This really leapt off the page. This is from Marinati, Sicilia. It says Sicily. Now. This is a very nice frame. I really like the strength of this wall. It's a very structured wall with those dark surrounds of the brick, and then obviously the shadow from the lamp curving beautifully around this figure. It's just a nice observation, really, and it makes me smile. And I love those sort of pictures. It's the kind of thing which you can spot and wait across the street for the right person to come along. And in some ways, that's an easy thing to do. But, he's just caught this character in exactly the right place, he or she. And it's just very playful. It's visually playful, and it really stood out to me. I think it's really lovely. Okay. Lots of nice pictures here, look. It's such a joy looking at pictures, isn't it? It really is. Now look at this. This entire frame is divided in half by the corner of that wall. And there's a very slight shadow cast onto the profile of the man sitting there, which I really like. Only the very tip and front of his face, the tip of his lips and chin and nose are in the sunlight. And that's a very nice little device that's going on there. The silhouette of his body is very nice against the far pale wall. And the whole frame is divided up into little areas. Got this area of grey in the bottom left-hand corner. Got that blue in the middle and that yellow to the top. All those colours working really nicely together. So it's a very graphic shot, isn't it? The zebra crossing as well, the white stripes in the robe. So it's a beautiful, simple observation. This is by Julian Aurelio in Spain. I think it's a picture, isn't it? It's just really pleasing picture. Colours and the light and the composition all working extremely well. The other thing I really like about that is the depth of field that Julian has chosen to use there. The fact that it just softens into the background there, just falls off. He's isolated that guy with you know, wide aperture, a narrow depth of field, and that's worked beautifully. And here's a sort of wide beach scene. It's a very broad picture encompassing a lot of the beach here, with a view right off down to some sort of funfair at the end and a wheel. And the whole thing's just been brought to life by this silhouette of a flying pigeon or bird here in that slither of light sand, and it just brings the whole thing together. I think a picture that otherwise could have been a little dull is just enlivened by this this flying bird. So you know, the colours are very nice in this. It's just a pleasing aesthetic picture, isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry, that was by Dan Baker 88 from Cleethorpes. Very nice. Okay, there's several here. There's lots I liked actually this time around. This is another one by Marinati. Okay, so again, this is a picture which is relying on light and shade. We've got this sort of magical symbol, this unicorn, which is just a helium balloon being pulled by a child. The child's looking up, and they are just beautifully lit. And then the background just falls away into shadow. There are a couple of other figures, but really our focus is on this beautiful flying unicorn that's in the foreground, in the centre of the picture. And there's just this lovely relationship between the child and the balloon. The upward turned face, so beautifully lit. It's nice that they're kind of on a corner. I think that's working well. We have a slight view down to the right. Corners always work beautifully for this, where you can see in two directions. When the viewer has that sort of privileged position of being able to see down both sides of a corner, it's something that's always pleasing. So I thought that was really nicely put together. Nice moment, nice touching moment, but also quite nicely composed. Good use of light. A lot of these pictures are relying on light today. This is by Nicor83. And, you know, who can resist a beautiful girl walking down the street in the sunshine holding her heart? There's a kind of symbol here, isn't it? It's kind of symbolic. And it's just a rather poetic image with this nice moment. It's almost like she's looking for love or something. The background again is very dark. The photographer's exposed for the highlights again, so that the shadows, the mid-tones slip into the blacks. But it doesn't rely on that completely for it to work. And so the girl with the heart really brings something to it, really makes the picture much more than just that. Yeah, it's very nice, very nice. Okay, I think we had a picture by Chris Harrison photo, sorry, from Brighton in the last review, but I couldn't resist this one because of this lovely kind of optical illusion. What I love about this is I just don't know what I'm looking at. Now I'm assuming that is some sort of poster in the background, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a genuine view down to the beach from a pier or something like that. Could well be. And a bit like the girl with the shaped balloon that we saw earlier, Chris has joined the foam of the sea, the white sea, with the line of the Coke, the toppled over Coke can there, or cup. And it just that just makes a connection visually that confuses everything. You don't know what's real, and you don't know what's a poster or a picture, or what might be a genuine background. But the picture doesn't just rely on that connection, that illusion. There's also a figure and this diving gull, which also add a really nice element to it. It's a really confusing picture, and I think that's why I like it. I like the little dribble of Coke. I like the upturned green straw. Just a lot about it is really nice. It's a terrific shot. Again, here's another confusing picture. This is by Stadland Bike. For your eyes only. It's even self-captioned, look. So it took me a while to work out what was going on here. Obviously, it almost looked like this had been put on in Photoshop, this lettering, but it's obviously on a reflective surface, and the photographers had to avoid getting themselves in the shot, I think. So there's a couple in the rain, and they're looking into the mirror, into this reflective mirrored surface, and we're seeing them from behind. So we have the sheen of water on the mirror as well, so it's not a perfect mirror because of the water on it. And I just really like the confusion. Whenever I see a picture and I can't understand it all at one glance, and I'm forced to interrogate the image a bit more, it's a very, I love that. It's a very enjoyable process to try and work out what's going on. And the text really brought something to the whole thing that that really made me had to show it, had to choose it. Here again, this is a picture by Clemono from Cambridge, and this is rather painterly, isn't it? I think we're in a greenhouse here, or a garden centre. There's a red watering can, there's yellow flowers hovering in the foreground, slightly out of focus. And then even the figure that we see through the clear plastic window is also out of focus. Looks like an oil painting, you know. The colours are quite pastel-y. One of the things that's very nice about this is the way that it is framed. If you look in the background, the frames of the window actually enclose the shot for us. So off to the left, it's enclosed in black, little black lines along the top and down the right hand side. So that just keeps the whole image rather contained in quite a nice way. And the colours are really lovely in this, aren't they? It's got a very atmospheric quality. And again, there's an element of not quite knowing what's going on. You know, we make our interpretation of it, but we'll never truly know. But it's, really very nice. Stood out to me that. I think you'll agree that's a lovely shot. Okay, almost down to last week's. Here's one of the first ones that I chose. This is by the 13th Second, also in Cambridge. That's a coincidence. And this is a very visual, very aesthetic picture, isn't it? Using reflections, using texture and colour and light and shadow, silhouette. Got that slightly lighter Kodachrome kind of quality to it in the colours. And there's a few extra things here. We've got a round doorbell here on the left-hand side, which is echoing the holes in the metalwork that we see there a little bit. These three colours, the blue, the yellowy beige, and the red at the bottom, they're all quite muted, but working in a very complementary way. And again, this picture is framed by black on the left and right hand side. It kind of looks like a Ben Nicholson painting or a Mondrian or something. All these little blocks of colour. And the whole frame is divided up into lots of tiny little sections, little white rectangles, blue rectangle, red one, and it's just very cleverly done, nicely framed. And obviously, I think when you do something as abstract as this, it is nice to have something just to anchor, something figurative, just to anchor the picture in reality. So this figure with the bowler hat just does that job nicely. Okay, was there any others I wanted to show you? There's a few here. Let's keep going. This is a flashlit shot. This is by Jano Lascaux, who I know is working in London. He works with a flash, and his flash is quite distinctive because he holds the flash low down rather than high up. So you get shadows, quite unusual shadows. But this guy's an interesting character, city type with his umbrella and his briefcase, and he's striding out in a very positive and confident way. There's a crazy background. Obviously orange and blue are complementary colours, so that's working quite nicely for us, and the orange fills the frame. I think it's a Louis Vuitton shop, judging by the logo. Now, I don't like flash photographs where the picture relies on the flash to be a picture. If the flash hadn't gone off and there wasn't going to be a picture there, I'm not keen on it in a way. I like there to be an observation. I like there to be a picture that the flash is illuminating. actually something existing that's striking. So, and I think there is here. I think there's a nice relationship with the guy's legs and the upturned V. There's a kind of echo there, and him just striding out up the curb there. I think it's very nice, nicely framed. The colours are working really well, and I like that shot. I recommend going to have a look at Jan Alaskor's work. If you're into that sort of flashlit street photography, he's very good and a slightly unusual practitioner of that approach. Okay, I had to choose this one. Any of you who know my work on the night bus will know that I'm a sucker for the diffusional qualities of glass and moisture, rain and condensation. And it's quite hard to get somebody with an umbrella walking past like that. I don't know if this is at a bus stop or a shop or what the situation is, but the light behind is gorgeous. We've got these little pools of light, the red in the bottom right hand corner, the yellow one there behind the umbrella, and then some two cooler different colours of light on the left hand side. And it's very painterly, very atmospheric. Quite common, this approach now, quite popular. This is by the 13th Second in Cambridge. Oh, another one. Okay, I'm repeating myself a little bit here. Literally, I just choose the pictures I like, regardless of who they're by. But that's really nice. Really nice. And you would hang that on your wall, wouldn't you? That's slightly mysterious. Okay, let's finish with this picture by Howard Larson. I think Howard's got 2 in this week. I think this picture's been made by the low angle that Howard chose to make the picture. He's used this guy to block the sun out, and so he almost has a halo around him, which is quite relevant, because I think this guy is probably some sort of preacher. He looks like he's holding a copy of the Bible in his right hand. He's got a little microphone to his mouth, and then he's pointing off into the top right hand corner, and that's working rather well. He's popped up against the sky with these clouds. The lighting's dramatic, composition's dramatic, and I think Howard's really made something of it by choosing the right angle. So I think that's very successful as well. So I hope that was enjoyable and useful and interesting. I really enjoy looking at street photographs. It's a great pleasure to see all the images that you have been sending in. Please do continue to submit pictures using the hashtag streetphotoreview on Instagram. And we'll have another video review session in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks so much to all the photographers who I chose today and who have allowed me to look at their pictures and review them. So it's time to probably grab your camera and get out there.